Fall is here. Right now, as I'm recording this, it's a little bit chilly and it's drippy outside. It's raining a little bit. It's a perfect day for sitting inside with some popcorn and a movie, or maybe a board game with some friends. A quiet day, a calm day. But as I think about fall feels a little bit different this year. Many of us have had a lot of quiet and calm days inside over the last 6 months. Many of us have been alone. Many of us have caught up on all the movies and TV shows that we had wanted to watch. And the busy days of summer with weddings and reunions and graduations and holidays and parties didn't entirely happen this year. So fall is feeling a little bit different as we transition in our seasons. I'd like to hold on to this feeling of things being different as we talk about our last word of life from the 10 Commandments, contentment. As I said with the kids, contentment is a feeling of things being just right. Things are okay and calm. Contentment is the value of God encouraging us when God warns against desiring what our neighbors have. Don't get envious or jealous about the belongings of your neighbors. Historically, this means wives and children as well as camels and goats. Women and children were considered property of men, of their husbands or fathers, back in the historical period that this commandment was written. More recently, when preachers have talked about this 10th commandment and not desiring or coveting what the people around you have, they often talked about the idea of keeping up with the Joneses, how in our society, in our culture, we often feel a pressure to get a better home, a better job, a better wife, a better college for our kids, so that we keep up with our neighbors, so that our status remains the same or reaches the level that we want it to reach. But in a pandemic, what are we desiring? Personally, I'm tempted to move to New Zealand. I hear they have almost no cases down there and it's pretty normal living. What else are people desiring right now? Eating out with friends at a restaurant where you can share margaritas and chips and salsa? Maybe sending your kids to regular school and just going to the office on a regular schedule? Movie theaters, concerts and singing? Sitting in church and drinking coffee together? Desire has changed. And over this summer, we've come to see that desire can be two-sided as well. It can be positive, such as when people desire to work for racial justice or alleviating poverty. It can be negative, where we put our personal preferences and desires above the needs of our neighbors, such as choosing not to wear masks or going and partying at crowded bars. As we read and prayed through our psalm together today, we're reminded that people often have a desire to see the wicked get what's coming to them. We recognize in the psalm that there is unfairness in the world. The people who follow the rules don't always seem to benefit, and the people who break the rules seem to get off scot-free. Where is the justice that we yearn for? Already this fall, I've heard the terrible news that 6 teachers nationwide have already died after contracting COVID from their schools reopening just in August. 6 people who were willing to put their lives on the line to bring education and compassion to school kids and their families. 6 people who gave their lives for others. The psalm turns our desire back towards God, the God who is rock firm and faithful, the refreshing presence of God in our lives. We're reminded that God will be the judge and God will determine what the wicked need and deserve. And God will be with us and take care of us. In the Sermon on the Mount in the New Testament, Jesus reminds us that God provides everything the lilies of the field need, that the sparrows of the air and the skies need. Jesus calls us to desire God's righteousness, God's holiness. Desire God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. God will give us what we need, including a promised home in heaven when our days here on earth come to an end. Later in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul writes and points out that the rules of the Ten Commandments and all the rules of the Hebrew Bible, the law of Moses, taught Paul as he was growing up what sin was and what God didn't want in the world. But as he writes to the believers in Rome, Paul points out that he can't keep the commandments by himself. Even himself, a highly educated, holy, and righteous Jewish Pharisee, can't do this on his own. And he is grateful and content that Jesus is in his life, and Jesus brings obedience, Jesus brings grace, Jesus brings salvation. Jesus is the one who helps all of us live into the words of life that we have been studying these last 10 weeks. Faith, trust, integrity, rest, family, faithfulness, generosity, love, life, contentment. We are wrapping up an unusual summer, and we may or may not feeling content at this moment. We may be entering an unusual fall and possibly a very difficult winter of isolation and separation. It may be hard for us to find and use our normal sources of contentment. Today I was reading a nostalgic review of an old TV show called Northern Exposure. It was on during the 90s. And it's a show where the premise was a New York doctor who happened to be Jewish, who graduated from medical school and had a lot of debt. And he decided to move to Alaska, where there was a program that if he served for a number of years as a doctor in Alaska, his medical debt would be repaid. The reviewer of this TV show was saying, there's a lot about this show that feels very comfortable and relevant today. There's a certain isolation and separateness of living in this Alaskan town. But one of the things that really hit me as I was reading it, there was a quote from the radio station DJ in the show. And winter was coming. And it was that time where there was only going to be 2 months of an hour and a half of light each day. And he said on the radio to all of his listeners, "It's cabin fever season, everyone. It's that time of year when 4 walls feel like they're going to come in here and choke the spirit right out of you. Time to lock away those firearms and hang tough. No way through it except to do it." There's no way through it except to do it. My guess is many of us are feeling that way right now, but I have to say this doesn't really sound like contentment. This sounds pretty tough. Can we do better as we're entering a season of fall and winter here? At Bridges Church, some of us have started talking about how we know this could be tough. But we have hope that we can still find contentment, both in the grace of Jesus Christ, but also in the community that God has blessed us with. Some of us have started dreaming and scheming. We're thinking about having some Holy Humor Sundays, the last Sunday of every month, starting in October through March, or maybe April or May. I'll still do a sermon, but I'm looking for some folks that can come together and get creative and on Zoom or on video, come up with some goofy themes, some skits, some jokes, some videos, some games, who knows what. Maybe we'll have Pajama Sunday. Of course, maybe some of us are already living Pajama Sunday. Maybe we can have Tuxedo and Prom Dress Sunday. Whatever to keep us laughing and feeling connected. Let me know if you've got any ideas and want to adopt one of these Sundays and come up with some organizing ideas. Another thought that I just got, our church has been designated as one of the new church plants for our Wisconsin Conference of the United Methodist Church, and we're getting some resources to help us get organized and to grow and to bring God's message to new people in new places. And we've gotten a grant that is going to be used to help pay for a coach who has planted churches and has worked with growing churches all across the United States to come and work with us. Our coach will be here on Saturday, October 17th for an all-day training. She's also going to get a tour of our community so she can get to know us. And then we're hoping to work with her for the next year or two to really help us get launched in a great way. But as I was talking to her this week and getting everything set up, one of the ideas that she shared from her church plant was that they did a video scavenger hunt where they had a list of places to go, and people would go with video cameras and they'd have to make little videos of themselves doing silly things or something in these different locations around town. This sounds like fun, and it sounds like something we could do as we are being safe by being separated from people right now. Things are different now. Things are going to be different. But God still calls us to find the places of contentment in our lives, the places where we can desire God and God's values for our community. We may be tired of being separated. We may be tired of being worried and careful and lonely. But God will provide what we need just when we need it. In a pandemic, in a long and dark winter, we can be content together, God and community. Amen.